Hey guys, Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Today's video I want to talk about the obsession with modes in the guitar community. I've been ranting about this for years now. I've just done a rant video not too long ago, a couple months ago, about the same thing, and I'm probably going to be ranting about this till the day I die because it's not going away. There's just too much confusion out there. There's too much misinformation. Too many people just spreading the false information. It's not going away. I'm doing my part. I'm doing the best I can to try and fix this problem here. But maybe this video will get like 5,000 views or something. I don't know. If it gets 5,000 views, I helped 5,000 people. Cool. This is a topic that triggers people. This is going to trigger some people. I know this. My intention is not to trigger anyone. I swear. I'm not trying to get anyone mad. I'm just trying to help people to just focus on the right thing. I just want to say up front, I want to be completely clear about this. I will never, ever, ever encourage anyone to not learn any particular topic. I will never say to anyone, don't learn your modes. I will never say that. Learn everything you possibly can. Learn your 5 pentatonic positions. Learn your 7 3-note per string patterns. Learn the cage system. Learn all the notes of your fretboard. Learn modes, learn jazz. Learn classical music. Learn bebop music, learn different rhythm types, learn about odd time signatures, learn how to read sheet music. Maybe you'll use it, maybe you won't. Learn it anyway. Learn as much as you possibly can. I will never tell people not to learn something. What I am trying to tell people is you probably, at this particular point in time in your guitar journey, you probably don't need to be focusing on modes. Now, that doesn't apply to everyone. If I try and make this post in I'm in this Facebook group that has like 400,000 people in there, and I try to say what I'm saying here in this video, there's just tons and tons of people. People are going to misunderstand what I'm trying to say. Some people are going to be more advanced than others. Some jazz player that's been playing for 30 years or something like that, they'll be like, I've been improvising over jazz standards for the last 30 years. And every time I see a major 7 sharp 11 chord, I use the Lydian scale. Are you trying to tell me that I shouldn't be using the Lydian scale? No, I'm not trying to say that at all. You should be using the Lydian scale, Mr. Advanced Jazz Player that's been playing for 30 years, who does understand modes and does understand the purpose of them. You should definitely be using the Lydian scale. For the majority of players that are still trying to figure out the fretboard puzzle, you probably don't need modes, all right? You probably don't. Let me give you a comment, and this is why I'm making this video today. This is based off a comment that I got on YouTube. This is exactly what the problem is. When I first saw a guitar and someone soloing on it, I was blown away. It seemed like magic, something beyond the ability for a human like me to understand. I felt the exact same way, and that's why I started playing guitar in the first place when I was 10 years old. Then somebody taught me some cowboy chords, and it started to make more sense. Years later, I've decided to get into playing leads and learning the cage system and so forth. Everything seemed like it was making a bit more sense day by day. That's awesome. And then those GD modes came along, and now I'm back to it all seems something beyond human capacity to understand, or at least this human's ability. I'm having a real hard time right now with whether it's even worth trying to learn all these things, as they are not even remotely adding to my enjoyment of music at the moment, and are mostly making me feel like a complete dumbass, despite hours per day studying and trying to learn what seems like an impossible amount of info. This is the problem. So I'm supposed to think that Hendrix is up there, aware of every note that he plays as he plays it, what mode he's in, and switching from one to another with every single chord change, ? So, I'm just going to stop there on that comment. I respect Hendrix. Great guitar player. Super awesome. I never really got super into Hendrix, though. I've heard all his radio stuff. I heard some of his non-radio stuff, but I've never heard one single Hendrix tune ever in my entire life that was like, yep, that requires an understanding of modes. Never once. Maybe he has some random B-side stuff that's never been played on the radio where he's like doing like a Lydian jam or something like that. Or maybe he has some stuff where he's improvising over jazz standards or something like that. I don't know. I've never heard all of his stuff. But from the stuff that I've heard of Hendrix, I've never heard one single thing that requires an understanding of modes at all. So that's that. The problem here is this guy is just not having fun because he's been led to believe that he needs to learn his modes because someone has told him, learn your modes. And then he went down the rabbit hole of trying to learn these modes of like videos, websites. Maybe he bought courses on modes. Who knows? I don't know. He went down the rabbit hole of trying to understand and learn these modes, but it's not making sense to him. He's like, this is not making sense. I don't get it. You're not a dumbass. You're not stupid. You're focusing on the wrong thing. That's it. Like, you don't need to be focusing on modes right now. If you don't understand why you should be focusing on modes, then you probably don't even need to be worrying about them, right? That's just how it goes. Let me give you an analogy real quick. This may make this modes thing make more sense. Let's say that you're in the health and fitness community, right? Nutrition, weightlifting, cardio and stuff like that. Let's say that within that community, the Facebook groups, the forums, all that stuff, people are obsessed with carb cycling. They're just so obsessed with carb cycling. And tons of people misunderstand carb cycling. Tons of people misunderstand the goal of carb cycling. But nonetheless, in the health and fitness community, everyone is obsessed with carb cycling for some reason. Now, someone comes along who is new to this health and fitness stuff, and, they start reading all this stuff about carb cycling. So they think, oh, I have to do carb cycling. Obviously, everyone's telling me that I have to do carb cycling. I must do it. So they go down the rabbit hole of learning about carb cycling and stuff like that, and they learn everything they possibly can. They buy courses on it, and they watch videos on it, and everything they can possibly learn about carb cycling, and they get obsessed with carb cycling. And they get to the point where they're like, oh no, I ate 131 grams of carbs yesterday. I was only supposed to eat 130 grams of carbs. I'm a failure. I'm a complete failure. This is too hard for me. I'm never going to get it. This doesn't work for me. I quit. And then they just go back to their old lifestyle where they don't exercise and they just eat pizza every day and stuff like that. And they just give up altogether. When in reality, all they really needed to do was just maybe eat less, eat better, and then start exercising. Fundamental stuff, and then they're just going to start getting in shape, and then the more in shape they get, they're just going to get more into it. Like, oh wow, I'm starting to see results, I'm starting to see some definition. All right, cool, this is working, this is awesome. And then as time goes on, maybe just maybe carb cycling may help them to get to that next level. In reality, the people that really need the carb cycling is like these bodybuilders. They're trying to get below 5% body fat. They've tried everything under the sun, and they just cannot get below 5% body fat, but they found that carb cycling is the thing that takes them just over the edge, and they're like, right, now I'm under 5% body fat. It's an advanced topic for a very specific situation. It is not a fundamental topic that applies to the masses, and that's the thing with modes and the guitar community. The guitar community has been led to believe that modes are an essential thing that you need. Otherwise, you're just never going to get it. You're never going to be able to navigate the fretboard. You're never going to be able to sound melodic. You're never going to be able to sound like your favorite guitar players that you hear on the radio unless you understand these modes. That's all crap. So a big part of this problem, and this isn't even like the entirety of the problem, but a big part of this problem is people tend to get into the modes thing when they start learning about lead guitar. Like, they want to start playing leads, they want to start soloing. That's usually where the exact spot where the problem occurs at. They're trying to learn leads, and someone has told them, learn your modes. So then they start learning their modes. They go on the internet and they start reading these different websites and watching different videos and stuff like that, thinking that they're learning their modes. And then in doing this research, it actually it helps them to achieve exactly what they were seeking in the first place. But once they've achieved that specific goal, it actually had nothing to do with modes at all. They just think that it did. What I mean is a person that is new to soloing, they're trying to learn how to, run up and down the fretboard. They see these guitar players just like soloing. They're here, they're up here, they're all over the place, Everything that these guitar players do sounds great, So they think, okay, this pattern here is called the Ionian mode pattern. This pattern here is called the Dorian mode pattern. This pattern here is called the Phrygian mode pattern, Lydian mode pattern, Mixolydian mode pattern, Aeolian mode pattern, Locrian mode pattern. 7 different patterns. So they connect all these 7 patterns together, and then it works. They're like, oh wow, I can solo up and down the entire neck of the guitar. I can solo in key. That's awesome. Learning my modes is the greatest thing I ever did. And then they go on to tell someone else, hey, you're trying to learn how to solo in key across the fretboard? You got to learn your modes, man. And then that person goes and does the same thing, and then they tell someone else, hey, you got to learn your modes. And then they tell someone else, hey, you got to learn your modes. Hey, you got to learn your modes. There was nothing, no one learned their modes in that situation. No one. That is not modes. It's just, you're just connecting the diatonic scale patterns together. It's a different thing. When you're trying to learn how to solo in key across the entire neck of the guitar, there's a couple of different approaches that you can do. If you're taking a pattern-based approach, then you can learn how to solo up and down the entire neck of the guitar using just 3 patterns. You can learn how to solo up and down the entire neck of the guitar using 5 patterns. You can learn how to solo up and down the entire neck of the guitar using 7 patterns. It's when that 7-pattern approach comes into play, that's where the confusion comes in, because people have incorrectly labeled these patterns as Ionian mode pattern, Dorian mode pattern, Phrygian, Lydian, mixed Lydian, Aeolian, Locrian pattern. But that is not what they are. But they think that they learned their modes. Let me read another comment to you real quick. So this person said, would you recommend this for someone who knows all the modes but wants to get their solos to sound more melodic instead of just noodling around the scale shapes? You don't know all your modes. Or maybe you do, but I don't think you do. I've seen this exact thing for the last 20 years now. It just keeps coming up over and over and over and over and over. Someone has told you to learn your modes, so you learned the diatonic scale patterns via the 7 patterns approach, and you think that they're called modes, but you didn't actually learn your modes. But yes, what this person now needs, because they know how to solo up and down the neck of the guitar, they know the patterns, they think that they've learned their modes, but they didn't. But they know how to solo up and down the entire neck of the guitar now. What they need to do next is to focus on chord tone targeting. Chord tone targeting is what will get your playing to sound more melodic. Chord tone targeting is just, you have your scale. It's just a single key scale. It's the diatonic scale, which forms different patterns across the neck, which can be visualized via 7 patterns, 5 patterns, 3 patterns. You can also just learn all the notes in your fretboard too. That'll do the job also. Like if your goal is to solo in the key of A minor, just learn the 7 notes from the key of A minor and just play those notes and don't play the other notes, completely bypassing the whole pattern thinking in the first place. So that'll achieve that too. So you have your diatonic scale, you're playing your 7 notes in the key that you're supposed to be playing in, but now you just want to focus on certain notes over certain chords in the rhythm section, and that's what's going to result in the melodic playing sound. So let's say that there's like a G chord, a G major chord playing in the rhythm section. You're going to have certain notes within this framework of notes, this diatonic scale. There's going to be certain notes that sound better than others when played over that G major chord. Those are going to be the chord tones of the G major chord. The chord tones are part of the overall 7-note key scale that you're improvising in. It's just that over the G major chord, the note G, the note B, and the note D are going to sound extra good. But then when the chord changes in the rhythm section to something else, let's say the next chord in the rhythm section is like an F major chord. So the note G, B, and D, they're not going to quite sound as good anymore because the underlying chord in the rhythm is now an F chord. So now your notes of focus in this 7-note diatonic framework are the notes F, A, and C. Over the F major chord, there's going to be the notes that sound good. So that's chord tone targeting. So that's what gets your playing to sound more melodic, less scaly, more connected to the underlying rhythm section. So those are the 2 big things. Number 1, people are trying to learn how to solo in key. I refer to that as layer 1. Soloing in key is you can connect the different patterns together, the 7-pattern approach, the 5-pattern approach, the 3-pattern approach, or just learn all the notes on your fretboard and then just really know your music theory really well and just be like, oh, okay, I'm playing in the key of G major. Cool. I know that the key of G major contains the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. I'm only going to play those notes because I'm in the key of G major. Any other note aside from that is going to be considered an out-of-key note. So I'm just going to focus on G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp, completely bypassing the patterns thing altogether. That's the first thing. We haven't even gotten into modes yet. No modes there, right? The next thing, okay, I know how to solo up and down the entire neck of the guitar. I like using the 5 patterns approach. That's the thing that works for me. I'm great. I can run up and down this guitar in my sleep. I can solo in any key. but my playing needs to sound more melodic. My playing's not, it sounds too scaly. It sounds not connected with the underlying chords and stuff like that. Chord tone targeting. All right, so that is the second thing. Learning how to solo in key, layer 1. Chord tone targeting, layer 2. Nothing right there has to do with modes. So the reason that this is a problem is, number one, that first comment that I read to you is it's causing people to become discouraged. It's causing people to get frustrated. It's causing people to just, I don't know, some people are just like, I give up. I give up. You know, they say I have to learn my modes, but I just don't get it. I do not get this mode stuff. I'm stupid. I'm a dumbass. I'm an idiot. I quit, you know? So that's a problem, you know? Like if they were misled and they thought that they had to learn their modes and then they can't seem to figure it out because they're just trying to figure something out where the solution is not there. The solution to what they're trying to do is either diatonic scale or chord tone targeting, but they're trying to learn their modes and they're getting frustrated and confused, thinking that they're a dumbass because of it. It's like I'm trying to learn English, but I'm reading a book on Spanish or something. Like, you're just not going to get the answer that you're looking for. I don't know, maybe that was a bad analogy, but I think you get the point. So yeah, so that's a problem. It's causing people to become frustrated. And then the other problem is, you know, like those people that actually do think that they're learning their modes, you know, because they've connected pattern 1 plus 2 plus 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 together, thinking that this is the Ionian mode, this is the Dorian mode, this is the Phrygian mode, Lydian. They think they learned their modes, but then years down the road, once they're more advanced, you know, when they may actually benefit from having an understanding of modes, they think they already learned it, you know? So they'll be like, oh, I already learned my modes. I don't need that anymore. I'm done with that. I've learned my modes. That's a problem too, you know? You think you learned something, but you didn't, you know? So, yeah, man, this is a problem. It's a big problem in the guitar community. It's an obsession. I don't know. I hope I can help people to try and clear this stuff up. Hope I can try and help give people better direction, you know? I just hate to see people go down the wrong path, you know? It's like going down that carb cycling path. It's like, oh man, I'm 100 pounds overweight. I've never exercised a day in my life. Oh, I got to learn carb cycling. Got to get good at carb cycling. Have to carb cycle. Too hard for me. I quit. I give up. I'm just going to not exercise. I'm just going to eat pizza for the rest of my life. Carb cycling is too hard. It's not for me. Replace carb cycling with modes. Someone quits the guitar because they don't understand their modes. It's a problem. Anyway, I have tons and tons of videos about modes, what they actually are and how to actually use them. I'm just going to link you to one in particular. It's called How to Actually Use Modes in Your Playing with 4 examples. You're going to see that it's a very specific thing. It's like, I'll just say it right here in this video. When do you use your modes? Number 1, you can write modal chord progressions. If you ever heard that song, the Santana song, Ome Como Va, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. So sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. But that is a Dorian chord progression. It's not necessarily a major key chord progression, and it's not a minor key chord progression. It's a Dorian chord progression. It has like a different sound to it. It's not as sad as a normal minor that you may be more used to. It has a bit different sound to it. That's because it's a Dorian chord progression. That's a specific case where, okay, modes. Yeah, have an understanding of modes. Understand what a modal chord progression is. Just type in modal chord progression Brian Kelly on YouTube. I've done tons of videos on modal chord progressions in the past. So yeah, that's one example of where modes might come into play, or where modes will come into play. Number 2, you are soloing over a chord progression and everything's in the same key. You're just 100% in the key of, say, I don't know, A minor or something like that. Everything's in this key of A minor. And then there's this one chord that's not in a key. Let's say there's like a B flat chord thrown in there. That chord's not part of the key. So as you're soloing over this chord progression in the key of A minor, you're using your A minor scale. You're using your 7-note diatonic scale for the key of A minor. Just using those 7 notes. But then once that B flat chord comes along, you want to do something different over that B flat chord. That would be the time where you might want to switch up your scale just over that one chord. For all the rest of the chords, you just use the one single scale the entire time. and then chord tone target within that one single scale. Over that B flat, maybe you find that playing the B flat Lydian scale works. And yeah, that would be that would be a specific scenario, which is arguably more advanced than where a lot of these people that are diving into modes are at. This is a very specific case. You have an out of key chord. You need to play a new scale over that out of key chord. Looking into what you need to do, you play the B flat Lydian scale as the scale of choice over that chord. But then after that B flat chord's over, you go back to just playing in the key of A minor and doing your chord tone targeting and all that stuff. So yeah, that's another very specific case. And I talk about that specific case in that lesson that I linked you to, the 4 practical mode examples. I talk about that exact scenario in that lesson. But hopefully you can see that this is a very specific case by case scenario where modes would become applicable. But for the guitar player that is, still trying to figure out how to navigate the neck in a key, you don't need modes. For the guitar player that already knows how to navigate the neck in key, but they're trying to get their playing to sound more melodic and more connected with the underlying chords, you don't need modes. You need chord tone targeting. But anyway, that's my video for today. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.